Welcome back to my channel, everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lindsay, and I am the Review Queen. Today I'm not really reviewing anything, so I think I'll take my crown off for now. Today I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do another Q&A while I do makeup. And today I'm going to talk about my experience living in Sweden, because people are curious about me living in Sweden since I'm from the US. So yeah, I'll do that. So let's start with concealer. And like all the products I'm using, by the way, they are cruelty free. Yeah, they should all be cruelty free. And they're not sponsoring this channel, so no one's sponsoring this channel today. It's just strictly a Q&A. So first question I'm going to start off with, and by the way, that's my handwriting. I'm so happy they have like typewriters and computers these days, because if I was back in the 1700s, I'd be screwed with this handwriting. So let's start. Question 1, why did you move to Sweden? I just realized I forgot to bring a mirror in here. Oh well. I have a mirror here and here. Okay. So, the reason I moved to Sweden I'm going to have to get a new one soon. There we go. Okay. It's simple. The reason why I moved to Sweden is because I was gonna move here simply for my husband. You know, although we weren't married at the time. We just got married last year. That's an interesting video on its own. I didn't vlog it. I kind of wish I did now, but it would have been so anticlimactic, and also my husband hates being filmed or being photographed, so it would have sucked one way or another because of that. But yeah, I moved to Sweden because of him. And I think I mentioned this in the video where I got married to my husband, but like, we were together for like 3.5 years before I moved here. We were literally having a long distance relationship that long, which is rare. And why we stuck it out that long rather than just like move on and try to be with someone locally? Because we loved each other too much, you know? But I will say this, though. There was like a lot of uncertainty during our whole entire time that we were long distance. And the thing is, we were long distance from the get-go. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but like, when I started going out with him, he was living in the U.S. on a work visa. And he was living in Ohio at the time. And I was all the way in Maryland. And that was like 10 hours away from each other. And I know this because he drove from where he lived in Ohio, which was Maumee. If you don't know where Maumee is, it's near Toledo. And that is not far from the Michigan border. And just trying to focus. I'm not good at focusing. I think you guys have picked that up. And if you're new to my channel, this is going to be apparent. I think that's enough. I got a lot of dots on my face today. If you don't know, I have rosacea, or whatever you call it. Spells Roscea, I think. Therefore I am. I'm a former theater major, by the way. Or aspiring actress. Yeah. So yeah, I moved to Sweden because of him. And I was actually on a trip here in Sweden in the summer of 2005. And towards the end, he literally asked me, "Do you want to move to Sweden?" And I said yes without any hesitation whatsoever. Now, there could be another reason too. He's the main reason, 100%, or actually 98%. Yeah. The other reason is I just thought it was a good opportunity to live outside the US. Because, I mean, I've always thought I would live outside the country at one point, and England was usually my focus. I was like, yeah, I'm going to live in England or something like that. No, I ended up being in Sweden. It's still Europe, though. You know? I didn't think I had a certain country in mind other than England, but hey, I was being offered to move to Sweden and I took it, you know? Was it a scary thing considering that my family are here? Absolutely. Is it scary because I'm not fluent in Swedish? Absolutely. But it's an experience and it's an opportunity and I wanted to take it. And of course, I'd be with him because he literally told me, I think after a year I moved here, that if I had said no, that we were broken up eventually. So I chose the right answer. I'm just going to use this to do this. I'm sorry. I found that concealer is really good to use on your bags right here. And I know I should have a mirror in here, but I've just gotten so used to using the camera. It's not even funny. At least when I'm doing videos, like when I'm doing my makeup in preparation for a vid, or when I'm getting ready for a party or something, I usually use the mirror upstairs in the hallway to put my makeup on. All right. I got my wipes ready because I cannot stand stuff on my hands. Not to take away from the topic at hand, but like I do have a disorder. And I know I've been vague about that for a while, especially somebody that's been here for like a while. I'm going to get to talking about it. It's just one of these disorders that I feel like is highly stigmatized still, so I'm scared talking about it, as you can imagine. But I'll get to there eventually. I keep saying that, but I will, you know. One of these days, I'm just going to bite the bullet. And I should probably do that when I'm drunk, you know. When I'm drinking, I know I shouldn't do this one in particular, but I forgot to put freaking things in this room I forgot to get like a paper towel to put this stuff on. That's another thing. My disorder hinders focus at times. But it's not what you think it is. I don't have ADHD. I can rule that out right now. And while we're at it, I don't have schizophrenia, which I'll also rule out. And I also rule out I don't have borderline. So those are 3 things that you guys know for sure that I don't have. But still, I feel like the disorder I have is stigmatizing, so that's why I'm not going to talk about it. But that's for another day. We'll go back on the topic of hand. Although I do feel like that does kind of tie into some stuff that is here in Sweden. Because I was diagnosed here in Sweden, so. I can put that back. No, I'm not going to drop it. It's glass. Let's see how I'm going to do that. I'll answer another question when I'm done doing this. Because I'm not good at focusing at all. And know people are like, why don't you use those little balls, or why don't you use brushes? Been doing this since the last 30 years. That's one of my kids up there. Okay, I think that's good enough for government. Hopefully. Let me see. Yeah, looks possible. Alright, the next question. Have you found it hard to live in Sweden without knowing Swedish? Here's the thing. I know I come across as not knowing any Swedish, but the thing is I do know Swedish. I just suck at talking it. When I was first here, I know I'm reverting to old habits, I'm sorry. When I was first here, and I immigrated here in 2006. Immigrated here in 2006. I was put in something called SFI, which is Swedish for immigrants. Or I think in Swedish it is Svenska för invandrare, or something like that, which looks a little bit like invaders. And I was in it for a few months, and I didn't drop out because, I dropped out because, in the States, like in college, if you keep missing a lot of classes, they keep encouraging you to drop out. Well, in October or November, no, it was later than that. It was late November to mid-December, I got bronchitis. And so I missed SFI for like 3 weeks. And then before that, I was having issues with nausea, and it wasn't pregnancy. I got my stomach checked out. They never found out what caused me to be so nauseous. But that caused me to miss class 2. And I thought because I missed so many classes that I had to withdraw from it. So keep that in mind. If you just immigrated to Sweden and you're taking SFI and you've been sick a lot or whatnot, if you're from a country where they expect you to drop out because you miss so much, don't do it here. Okay? They don't give a shit about that. They will just keep you back behind and help you until you were where you were initially, but do not drop out. Okay, don't make the same stupid mistake that I did, because then you'd be put back on the waiting list. And I never got put back on the waiting list because, truth be told, my husband and a lot of Swedes here don't really think highly of SFI to begin with. Me, I thought it was good. But then again, I'm not a native Swede. But compared to the U.S. education system, I did think it was good. So, actually, it's funny, we say U.S. education system, but the reality is, especially if you're not from the States, is that our education is breaking down by the state level. So each state has their own criteria of what they expect you to accomplish before you graduate from high school, and it's not a national thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's so many issues is that there's no national criteria of what you have to do in order to graduate from high school in the U.S. It's all by state. And states have different requirements of what is required of you to graduate. So it's not like here in Sweden where there's a national criteria. But then again, I will point out there's province requirements too, like there are in the States. But I think the national thing is more focused on here in Sweden than it is in the U.S. So... okay. No, yeah, I mentally got off topic and then I went in a completely direction and then completely forgot what the question was about. But having said that, I do know Swedish, but not enough to really get a job. Even though I have worked here in the past, it's not enough for me to get a job here. Even though I have worked a factory job before, and that was because I was a temp at a company that my husband used to work at, that he helped me get. And I was able to work 2 summers there as a temporary, putting stuff on a conveyor belt to go around in a paint shop. But then the company had layoffs and I couldn't be rehired as a temp. So that's why I never went back to working for there. And I mean, I started. This actually ties into like some stuff I want to get into eventually, but I think I'll talk about it now. So you definitely need Swedish if you're going to immigrant here, or if you've already been here for like a few months or even 2 years. You do need Swedish to basically live here. Will you not survive? It depends. I mean, I'm lucky that I'm with a Swede, but if you don't have any connections to any Swedes, it might be a lot difficult, especially if you don't have, especially if you don't know Swedish. Now, English might get you a little bit further because the Swedes are taught English when they're 9, but it's not going to help you get a job, really, because a lot of companies, there's a few things that the industries here require. One is fluency in English, not English. Fluency in Swedish, and also you need to have a college diploma in the majority of the industries here. Some stuff like factory work is good for high school level, if you have a high school level education, but if you really want to make money, you need to graduate from college here. Now, I don't know if it's the gymnasium degree or what, because here's the thing that's a little bit different than it is in the States. So, in the States, if you're from the States, and if you don't know anything about the States, I'll tell you now. So normally you have like elementary school, middle school, high school, and then you have college, but you have 2 different types of colleges. You got a 2-year college called a community college. You got a technical college. You got a something college that starts with a V. I don't know how to pronounce that word, unfortunately. I want to say vocal or something like that, but I know that's so wrong. But I mean, if you're from America, you're kind of getting an idea of what I'm trying to say. And then you got a 4-year university, and then some 4-year universities have you go on do further learning and stuff. And then you got colleges that you can get the major degrees at, like Harvard and Princeton and all this other stuff. Even though you can still get a bachelor's degree there. I'm just going to put that there. And I'm not good at doing makeup and answering questions at the same time, apparently. But, so you have those things in the U.S. In Sweden, however, you have something called förskola, which is basically primary school or elementary school. Then you go there until you're like in 6th grade, and for a lot of Swedes, that's when you're 13. And then you go to like a high school. I forgot what it's called. I want to say folkskola, something like that. And you go there from the time you are like 13 until you're 16. Because in Sweden, it's 16 years is mandatory school. And then they have gymnasium. And gymnasium is basically, it's basically like a combination of high school and community college, I would say. Except it's 3 years. And the reason it's a combination of high school and community college is that when you're between the ages of 16 to 19, you're already studying a field that you want to work in. And gymnasium degrees is what they really focus on. Or is that the high school? Was that high school? It's kind of hard to because it's so different, But basically, you start to already study what kind of field you're going to go in. So that's why I kind of say it's more like a college, but no, college is the university. So you need a university to graduate, or to not graduate, but to get allowed work here in Sweden. Now, here's the funny thing with me, is that I do have a college degree, a 2-year college degree, an associate's degree in general studies, even though I was going for theater, except the school that I went to, their theater program isn't good enough. I shouldn't say that. It's not that it's not good enough. It's just like there's not a lot of participation in it, so a lot of classes end up getting canceled. And that happened to me a lot. I had 2 classes left, and they kept canceling them, so I had to go with a general studies degree rather than a theater degree. Yeah, I'm still bitter about it. If you haven't noticed. Okay. But anyway, I keep going. I'm sorry if I keep going on track, because like there is some things that do factor in these questions and stuff, so please bear with me. Especially since I have the mind where basically it's like a dog that sees a squirrel and that's all it can focus on. So, yeah. But, anyway, you do need that. And I do have a college degree, like I said, but it's associate art degree. It's not like a 4-year degree, and that's not good enough here. At least that's what I was told at the employment agency by my first caseworker back in 2007. Isn't that nice? She says it was too general. And I'm like, I know. I was gunning for theater and then didn't get it by 2 requirements. So that left me kind of better. So, yeah, but yeah, basically, it's not that I don't know Swedish. It's just that me speaking Swedish sucks. And it does tie into my disorder a lot. Because I have issues learning stuff. When I got an assessment done 4 years ago, they test you in various departments. Memory, verbal, how good you are with your vocabulary, how fast you can process information, and other stuff. But the thing that I tested the least well in, that was literally basically below average, I'm not lying about that, is my ability to process information fast. Now, it's not with everything, If it also depends on what type of learner I am too, and I am not an auditory or a visual learner. I am strictly a tactile learner, where I learn from hands-on activities, and that is the one thing that isn't taught a lot in the classrooms anywhere. Most classrooms are done by either verbal or auditory learning. And if you don't learn that well from either one of those, you're screwed. So, because of that type of learning, and because I have issues processing information fast, some subjects I struggle in. So, math, English, reading and spelling, I all struggled in. Now, the things that most people find boring or find hard is shit that I'm actually good in, like history and geography and geology. I'm good in those fields, but I'm not good in the fields that really matter at school, or let alone matter here in Sweden. But that's not Sweden's fault. That's my fault, or my issue. But I will say this, the Swedish employment does have ways for you to help you if you do have a disability or a disorder at the same time. So if you're new to immigrating here, or you've been here for a little bit, or you're about to immigrate, just know that if you have a disability or a disorder of some kind, make sure you tell them, and they'll help you get resources. You got to send in information to the agency that you have those issues, so they can give you extra help, and you can get compensation for it. So yeah. So I do know that I need to do Swedish. I know I need to speak Swedish a lot. It's just that, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't talk Swedish when I'm out. When I order food, I make sure I talk in Swedish. So it's not like I'm completely unaware of how to say anything. And I'm pretty good to talk in Swedish if I know what I'm saying. But there's another problem. Some translations between English and Swedish do not exist, and vice versa. If you were a Swede trying to explain to an English person what ATT means, or at, not the English word at, the Swedish word at, you wouldn't know how to translate that, because that word does not exist in English. And the in English does not exist in Swedish. And there's other translations that get lost along the way, so that's one problem you will have. But yeah. So it's not that I don't know Swedish, it's just that I'm not good speaking Swedish, but keep in mind that my disorder has made me feel very, and I know this sounds stupid given that I do YouTube, but like my disorder has made me lose confidence a lot in how I talk. And it did too when I read initially, because I actually used to hate reading and writing. But the thing that would helps me is just practice. The more I practice something, the more I got better at it. So I eventually became a writer. I have a book out there. And then I eventually learned how to love to read. It's just a matter of just practicing and practicing and trying to getting over a lot of barriers and hurdles, especially when your own mind creates them. So that's what I want to say about that, you know. So let me see. So overall, it hasn't been 100% hard because I've been living with the Swede and he's helped me get some work and all, but like it could be better. And I'm trying to get to that place where it could be better. I'm actually going to go back to SFI to learn Swedish, even though I've been learning Swedish all this time, especially through my children. It's just part of it is just trying to get over this mental hurdle I have in my own head that I'm not good at talking. And this isn't even in English. I mean, this is not just a thing in Swedish. Like, I know I don't act like it, but I do have issues with me even speaking in English at times. Like, it's like, oh, it's not good enough. If I can't pronounce something, I give up. And you guys saw that earlier when I was trying to pronounce that one type of school in the States, and I couldn't do it because I didn't, you know, I see the word in my head, but I have trouble vocalizing it. That's a good thing. A way to describe how my thinking works with this disorder is like two-way traffic. Except one side is blocked off by construction work. And then, you know, my thoughts are like, oh, I better say this quick. Otherwise, I don't remember what to say or whatnot. And that's another problem I have. So Swedish is tied to my issues with talking English as well. So it's not just an issue with Swedish. It's just a language problem I have. Because, like, I mean, initially I did have a learning disability, and now that learning disability is tied into the disorder I have now, which is still vague, but like I said, I'll talk about it eventually. What are the things that are better in Sweden than the US? Okay. Healthcare is one of them. Now, I know some people are going, I had to wait for a long time. Yeah, those are specialists. If you need a specialist, yes, you could wait for a long time. That is true, but I'm talking about, you know, emergency care or an appointment. You can get those appointments a lot faster. Yeah, of course, it's affordable. But I think the thing that a lot of people, especially in the States, don't realize is that even though we do have like a state-run system, we also have a private-run system. That's a little dirty secret that neither side in the U.S. talks about or doesn't seem to know. If they know it, they conveniently keep it a quiet. So, I got diagnosed with asthma back in 2000. Actually, I'm going to do the eyeliner here. I think that would be a little bit too squeamish for some people if I do it there. Although I do need a... Ooh, I got to rub this in my skin. I didn't see that initially. I should probably put on the light, but oh well. I lost some of my natural light. There's a storm on the way here. I'm sorry, I'm just trying hard to poke my eye out here. So, I got diagnosed with asthma back in 2017. I was warned about it in 2005 while I was developing it because I've had a lot of cases of bronchitis, two of them being very bad. Although at the time this happened, where I had this anxiety attack that mirrored symptoms of asthma, it was basically a very bad anxiety attack, and I thought I was having a heart attack, so I went to the hospital. And this was still in the US, by the way. This wasn't in Sweden. And so I was warned ahead of time I was developing asthma because all the times I've had bronchitis and stuff, and the one time I had pneumonia. And of course, later, the very next year, I think, is when I had the flu for the very first time, and then I got pneumonia the second time. So I eventually developed asthma because of all that. So my inhalers, at first, especially the one that has a corticosteroid in it that is designed to keep you from, prevent your asthma from getting worse. So I take 2 different inhalers. And I know this might be a different system compared to other countries and stuff. But here in Sweden, they treat mild asthma with inhalers. So right now I take powder inhalers. And one I have to take twice a day. And one I take only when I feel like I'm having an attack or something. And the one I have to take every day was like initially for a 3-pack in one. It was like $90. But I was able to get a single one was like $30. Well, now it's less than that. I can get 2 inhalers for less than $20 now. So you can get your asthma medication a lot cheaper here than in the US. Also, when I gave birth, I was charged, I think, for only $10 for 3-day visit. And I didn't have any, I think the only thing I had was the nitrous oxide. I didn't have anything else. No IV, no nothing. And I was able to get meals for free. And that was for me and for when I gave birth to both Tess and Alex. Then I was hospitalized for a miscarriage in 2010 where I needed a blood transfusion and a DNC to remove what was left and before anyone comes at me, so to help me, I had already lost the pregnancy, okay? The pregnancy was terminated on its own spontaneously. I had nothing to do with it. But they needed to remove what was left because if you don't remove any fetal remains from you, it gets infected and it can kill you. On top of that, it was making me bleed out because they did an autopsy on the fetal remains and it had a different blood type than me. I'm O negative. While I can give blood to anybody I can give blood to anybody basically. I cannot get blood from other people except those with O negative. And anything mixes with my blood, it's disastrous, and that's what happened. The fetus had a different blood type than me, and it mixed with mine during the process that it was being miscarried, and then I started to bleed out. And so all that, I think, was only $20 basically. Yeah, that whole entire thing was $20. Blood transfusion, DNC, all that, and staying in the hospital for like a day, $20. Meanwhile, when I had my anxiety attack in the States in 2005, which is when I was told I was in the process of developing asthma. But of course, keep in mind, I went to the hospital thinking I had a heart attack because I had an uncle die when he was 20. So, and that didn't help my anxiety attack at all. But when I went to I went in an ambulance and I was in the hospital for maybe a few hours doing tests to see if I did have asthma or if it was something else. They quickly ruled out it wasn't a heart attack. I came in with symptoms of asthma and an anxiety attack. That whole entire thing between the hospital, like the hospital bell and the ambulance bell, ambulance was like, I'm trying hard not to get the 2 bills switched. It's $260 for one, and it was $200 and $160 for the other one. And I think it was $160 for the ambulance and $200 for the hospital. For all that. I didn't have surgery. I didn't have a blood transfusion. I didn't have a meal, and that was like 200. So yeah. Um, but that's what I like about Sweden is that it's affordable. Healthcare is affordable. And even if you don't want the government to be involved in your healthcare, they do have a private sector here. That's something that's not mentioned a lot in the States on either side, which drives me the fuck crazy. Sweden does have a private health insurance sector. So if you don't want to be involved in state-run healthcare, you have that option. And frankly, I support that. Yes, I may go to a state-run healthcare facilities because I like the state-run healthcare facilities. But if you want to go to a private run, I support that choice as much as, if you want to do state-run. And that's what I like about Sweden a lot is especially the healthcare. They also are more focused on preventive healthcare than waiting until you're so sick and then, they don't focus on preventive healthcare. They only focus on, you're already fucked up, basically. Case in point, sorry guys. I'm just beginning to discover how much better it is for me to not touch my eyes when I'm doing this than it is without touching my eyes. That's a lot better. There we are. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm in a ranting mood right now. But yeah. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so with preventive healthcare, I made the moronic mistake of getting a lipid panel done literally a week after I got over my case of bronchitis back in 2007. Which, by the way, I recommend not to do. Because, you haven't been exercising, and so your HDL levels will be low. Because that's what they got on me about. And they're like, yeah, your cholesterol is a little bit high. I think it was 7.1 with the measurement they use here in Sweden. I'm trying to remember what it would have been in the States. I think in the States, that is considered still healthy, while here it's not considered healthy. So they're like, yeah, your cholesterol's beginning to climb. We think you should come in and get talked to a nutritionist, and then do some things to help you out, and then come back to get retested. And when I came back to get retested, things were a lot better. But because they were starting to see a climb in my cholesterol level, they got a nutritionist involved to get me help, and then that was their way of trying to prevent it from getting worse, so I don't get extremely overweight or obese. Yeah. So next is eyeshadow. Did I take the wrong one out? No, oh, see, if it gets really darker, we know that I messed up. So yeah, they're definitely better at healthcare here, in my opinion. Again, if you're waiting for a specialist, yeah, you might have a different opinion about it, but like emergency care, regular doctor's appointments, medicine, a lot better, and they have preventive healthcare, and they're not profiting off your healthcare. That's the thing I don't get. It's like doctors are pushing a lot of stuff on you in the States. Although I didn't really have that problem. But keep in mind, it's been about 19 years since I went to the... Actually, that's not true. I went to the doctors, I think, in 2012. Yeah, because... No, it was actually 2013 before I went back to the States. I had come home for a visit, and I was pregnant with Alexander at this time, and I had a really bad cough. And I went to, my mom took me to the doctors, and got me some help because I had the cough for like at least a week or two, and I was getting nervous that I might turn into something. So we went to the doctors then. It was just a cough. That happens at times. But nowadays, since I have asthma now, if a cough lasts for a month long with no other symptoms, it's just my asthma being an asshole. But yeah, I went to the doctors in the States, and it was okay. Here's the thing. I never had a bad experience with doctors in the U.S., okay? I want to make that clear. I like healthcare with the actual care in the States. I never had an issue with that. It's how it's not affordable. Now, of course, keep in mind, my experiences stemmed before the Affordable Health Care Act came to be, so I haven't had any experience with that. Just what I had before that. So my issue is just the affordability of it all. It's not the actual care, it's just the affordability of it all. That's what I think I wanted to get down to. But I think I've been on this question for a while. I think you guys get it that I prefer the healthcare here. And I will also say, like, education is free. My time at SFI is free, and it's going to be free. And if you're actually in college, they do pay you a little bit, but I don't know what the figure is. And actually, they pay you not to take SFI, but there's certain things at SFI that you can actually get paid for. So, I mean, it's free and you get paid for certain things. So that's why I like a lot better than Sweden than the US. Let's see, moving on. I feel like today has been a little bit politically ranty a little bit, but I'm trying hard not to make it political, okay? Oh yeah, I think that's another thing I like about Sweden. You can vote for more than two parties. But, are you always going to get what you want? Not 100%, but here a party needs 50% to become the leading party. And to get into parliament, you need like 4% of the votes, at least to be in parliament on all three levels. So yes. What is your favorite thing in Sweden? Healthcare. Or how healthcare is affordable, I think we've established that's what I like. Even because I think the actual care in both countries is good. It's just not affordable in the States, especially when I live there. And probably like that still, but who knows? What was the biggest culture shock when you moved to Sweden? Let's see. I think I'm gonna use the mirror again because I think I got rid of the mirror. Oh god. I feel sorry for people who like makeup and all watching this. They're going, she's so chaotic. I know, I'm sorry. Ew, I got hair on my finger. Oh, please don't fall out. Please don't fall out. Please don't fall. Please don't fall. Okay. That looks clumpy. Hold on. One thing that shocked me, and it seems weird, how much candy the Swedes love. Oh my god. Like, the first few times I visited here, I was literally so sick and tired of, not that I ate a lot of it, but like, because like here in Sweden, they have a day where you eat candy or snacks or something. It's usually on the weekend, like on Fridays or Saturdays. So during the week, a lot of Swedes will not eat a lot of junk food, like candy and chips and stuff. They wait until either Friday or Saturday to indulge in it, and then they abstain from that for the rest of the week. And it's a good idea. I mean, it's not like in the States where if you feel like snacking on something, you go for it. I feel like that is still on there. I know it's going to mess up my lashes if I keep this up. Hold on. But despite that, when they want to indulge on candy, they indulge. There is so much candy. It's more than our candy aisle in the States. Like at a regular grocery store. And that's what I'm talking about. This is at a grocery store. There's really a big aisle, maybe an aisle and a half dedicated to candy. And, you know, there's just so much of it that it feels overwhelming at times. And there's candy stores, too, that feel even more overwhelming. Because it's like it's like bulk candy. And by the time I would come back to the States after going here, for like a summer or for like a month, I would be so sick of candy that I would avoid eating it for a while. And maybe that's why they do it, to avoid not eating candy for a week, is to overindulge on a day. That was a culture shock in its own way, I gotta admit. And I know that seems a little trivial, but that's how I felt when I came here. Well, I know Europeans, especially Swedes, are less prudish than we are in the States. We were watching something at SFI it was an SFI. It was because I got a practice run at the Red Cross in Burroughs. And we were watching a video, I think, about water treatment. And they had like a little cartoon thing of pee and crap. And like me and this other girl that was from like the Middle East were like, eh. Well, like the other Swedes were not fazed by it. So they're less prudish than we are. But now that I've been living here for like 19 years, the nudity doesn't bother me that much anymore. Because Swedes see nudity as something natural. They see sex and nudity as something natural versus, taboo, or, they don't look down on it like we do a lot in the States. Of course, that doesn't mean that you see a lot of naked people floating around here, They just have like a better, healthier perspective of it than we do in the States. But we can blame the prudish Puritans for that, and the Victorians. I mean, most people think that the Puritans were very prudish, and yes, they were. But the people that actually really were prudish were the Victorians. They were extremely prudish. Probably because with the Victorians, they became very obsessed with body cleanliness. You see what I was saying earlier with how I talk? They were very obsessed with hygiene, and they looked down on bodily functions and all this other stuff because it wasn't clean or whatnot. And that kind of factored to the States a little bit, because even though we don't 100% follow what the British did, we kind of followed them a little bit, but not 100%. But yeah, Victorians, especially in Britain, were very prudish and very, like, looking at bodily functions as, unnecessary evils because it made you messy and stuff. And sex, of course, is one of them. So just a little quick history listed in there, just in case. Okay. Okay, I can put my mirror away. I can put my mirror away. I'm just going to look at that now since it's just moving my lips. I'm trying to think if there's any other culture shock. It's not so much a culture thing. It's more like, because I know in like the northern states as well, especially like in Alaska, you know, they have the 24 hours of light during the summer and 24 hours of darkness during the winter. So it's not just something restricted to Sweden, but that's been a bit of a shock too. But I can get to that later. Are you a citizen in Sweden since you lived there for a while? Yeah, I became naturalized in 2020. Maybe actually it's better use that mirror. That looks a little cringed. What do you still have trouble adapting to in Sweden? Well, you may think it's the language, but no. The thing that I still have trouble adapting to after all this time is just the darkness in the wintertime. That's what I still struggle with to this day. 24, we don't really, here's the thing. In this part of Sweden, and I live in southern Sweden, I live about 18 hours away from the most northern city in Sweden, which is Kiruna. I probably did not pronounce that right. Kiruna? Spelled Kiruna. They're the most northern town in Sweden. They're in the Arctic Circle and all that. They get the 24 hours of darkness and the 24 hours of light. Here, we get 6 hours of darkness during the summer, and then in the winter, we get 6 hours of light. And even with that amount, it's been hard, especially during the winter. And the reason why is that if we're having a mild winter where we're not getting a lot of snow, we're getting rain instead. You know, you look outside when there's a little bit of light and you see nothing but rain and mud and gloom and doom, and it just messes with your mood. So that does cause seasonal affective disorder for me too, which I have no trouble admitting. So that I still am trying to adapt with all this time. Now, I think if you were born here, you're used to it, because my husband and children don't complain about that. And we do sleep with blinds and stuff over our windows, especially during the summertime, because it can get light as early as 4 a.m. So, and then it stays like maybe till 10 o'clock at night here. So, yeah. Last question, I think. Yeah. Do you still enjoy living in Sweden? Yeah, I do. You know, I enjoy living here. It's a beautiful country. Food's good. Oh yeah, that was another thing that's a little bit different than the States. When I first came here, the food tasted weird here. And that's because I learned there was no preservatives in it. Well, we have preservatives in the States, although they're slowly phasing that out. But at the time, in 2003, which is when I first visited here, the food, in my opinion, didn't taste good. But then, 2 years after I moved here, so like this is like 2007, maybe it was 2008 where I officially noticed it. I noticed the food in the States didn't taste good because I had finally adapted to how the food tasted here in Sweden, which was no preservatives, so there's no chemical aftertaste. And then when I went back to the States, I would try the food and it suddenly had a chemical taste to it that I didn't notice before. So that was another thing I noticed, and actually that was actually a shock in itself when I realized this. However, I will say in the last couple of years, there's been less of a chemical taste in the food in the States than it was, say, back in 2008 at least, 2007, somewhere around there. So they're slowly phasing out preservatives in the food in the States, but you can still taste it in some stuff, like, you know, like fruit snacks, you know, that kind of thing, like fruit by the foot, that kind of thing. But overall, it's getting a lot better now. So I just want to say that. So, yeah. And I also, despite what's been going on, you know, I still love both countries equally. I still love my native home, and I still love here. Yes, we are having problems in the States right now, but what country right now isn't having their problems? You know, you learn, especially when you travel, that each country, even if there's a lot of negativity in it, there's always some positives in it, you know? And when you realize there's positives, it makes things a little bit more bearable and stuff. You cherish the positive sides of a country, even if there's a lot of negativity around it, like in the government or something. So I just want to say that I still love being an American, but I also love being an immigrant or a citizen in Sweden now. All right. That's all my questions for today. And that's all of my makeup. Well, y'all, I hope you liked this video. I hope it wasn't too chaotic. It's almost an hour long now. So smash like the video if you like it. If you subscribe, I'll be absolutely delighted, and I'll see you all later. And please let me know in the comments if you have any experience immigrating to any country. If you live here in Sweden yourself and you're an immigrant, please share your experiences. I know we don't have similar experiences. I know some people have had it worse than others, but don't hesitate to tell me and stuff. And, you know, you can also talk if you've immigrated to other countries, including to the U.S. So, well, y'all, talk to you later. Toodles.